Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this event on a Saturday morning. I deeply appreciate your time and your presence. My name is Loyola Rankin. I am one of the college success coaches with the American Indian College Fund, and we'll be hosting this webinar called Considering Transferring. Again, my contact information is there at the bottom, lrankin@collegefund.org. Should you have any questions, concerns, or just want to talk in general about transferring, please feel free to reach out. Okay, so for this webinar's agenda, we have a four-part agenda today. The first one is talking about what is transferring and what would constitute someone to transfer. The second part, which I erringly put 3 instead of 2, what is the process to transfer? So what does that look like for our scholars? The real part 3 of what is the timeline, and then part 4 is navigating that after transfer space. Our session goals today is to better understand the intricacies of transferring colleges and what to expect on your academic journey, should you consider transferring. So what is transferring? Transferring is moving from one academic institution to another. So this could be a college or a university, private, public, just moving from that one campus to another campus and institution. That is the technical definition of transferring. Colleges may have specific definition of what constitutes a transfer based on that location. So you want to make sure that you are looking at the college's definition of what constitutes a transfer student. So some possible definitions that I've seen, that I've researched are, they could be based on students who have attended a previous college for at least one academic semester. And so that's really more of a time-based definition, not based in transferable college credits, like the second definition here. So this one is based on transferable college credit hours. That is not based on hours attempted, but hours that can transfer. So you may have technically like 40 credit hours, but only 20 of them transfer. Does that constitute you a transferable student in this example? Not really, because you need 24 credit hours, transferable credit hours. We're going to get more into transfer credits later on in the presentation. Another definition could be going directly into a specific major or program. So some colleges have set up their academics in that the first 2 years are block, kind of like block scheduling, but with your block degree checklist. So this is like cohort based. You're taking all of your general education requirements, you're getting those out of the way, and then you go directly into your degree specific requirements during the last 2 years at that college. So if the setup is this way, if you're transferring in, you're going directly into those specific program or majors. You're not really looking at taking those general education requirements. This could also be a limitation because you are not only competing with how many slots are available, but how many of the colleges undergrads who were there for the first 2 years are going into that major. So for example, if there's 15 slots available and there are 12 undergrads who've been with the college since their freshman year, that means there's 3 slots to transfer in. So you're competing against other transfer students in that field. And we're going to talk about that example a little later as well. So that's growing directly into a specific major or program that would constitute a transfer student. And there are many other definitions just dependent on the college or university that you're looking at. Would strongly encourage you to look and research at that college what the definition is. Because you want to make sure that you're going through the proper channels. Because if you start as a transfer student, but then, you're not transferring in all those credits. They're going to switch you over to like a new freshman or another type of applicant pool. So definitely look at the college's website, talk to the admissions office, let them know your interest, and let them answer those questions and those nuances of transfer that you might not be familiar with. And this is important because according to the 2023 National Clearinghouse database, 1/3 of all college students transfer at least once before earning their degree. Now, that means at least once. So that also could include a part of that one is people who have transferred multiple times across different institutions, different colleges. So it is not, there is no limit to the amount of times you can transfer. Of course, you want to like cut down on the amount you transfer just because you will run out of financial aid through the FAFSA, as well as any other type of support that you might need. So when you do transfer, you want to be strategic and decide on like what would be the best course. And the great way to do that is to talk through multiple channels. Generally, 15 to 40% of all newly enrolled scholars transfer. So that is a wide number of 15 to 40%. Again, this is because the definition of transferring and who constitutes a transfer are different. That's why it gets confusing, because we have that definition there at the top, and then we have those individual colleges saying what a transfer student looks like. So it is a wide range of available resources as far as like what is the actual number, but a good portion of the student body does transfer, I think we can get from this data. Okay, so here we have reasons to transfer, and they could be many multitude of reasons, equally valid amongst all of them. Just going through a few here. There could be financial concerns if you have reached a financial precipice and it's just not working out for you at this college. You may want to transfer to one that has better financial resources for you or costs less overall out of pocket. That is definitely an option to transfer. A life event, and so changes are needed. That's a big one as well. This could be anything from you need to become a caregiver in your home at home, so you have to transfer home. This could be a child is brought into your life and you need a college or institution that has childcare, and the current one you're at doesn't have that, or doesn't have it as a financial reasonable rate. So that could be something related to transferring. Social isolation at your current college is also a great opportunity to transfer. This could be anything from, there has been social fallout, the college is engaged in a scandal of some kind, or you just personally don't feel connected to your college. That is totally fine. Like, it's definitely a good reason to transfer, to try and find that space that you feel you can really invest in yourself, and really find that places that you can learn and what is healthy for you. This also kind of ties into that one there on the bottom of better understanding of your wants and needs. There have been cases in my professional career where someone went to the same college as their best friend, and they were like, we had a friend pact, and so we decided to go to the same college. But either the friendship, ended, or they found out that this institution wasn't working as well for them as it was for their friend, and so they decided to split. And that's fine. You can definitely have those moments. It doesn't mean you're not going to be friends anymore. Just you have a better understanding of what your wants and needs are, and the institution that you're at is not currently fulfilling them. So feel free to transfer. Same thing, being closer to family, a career opportunity, or other important environment. This is also pretty critical for why people transfer. A large population of the current scholars have employment as part of their responsibilities. So if you find a better job in another town or another state, that might constitute a transfer. Or, if you just find that the South is just too hot and you prefer a colder environment, and so you decide to transfer to the northern part of the country, that's totally fine too. We also have sports opportunities. If you're an athlete, you find that you've been recruited to another college, totally fine. International transfers, that's both transferring outside of the US or transferring back in, that happens. You find that you're not challenged at your current institution and you want to find that academic rear, that's totally fine too. You can find another space that works for you. One of the more common roadmaps for transferring is transferring from a 2-year college to a 4-year college. And this could be like attending a community college, attending a local TCU, and then deciding to transfer to the local 4-year college. This could be like a state college, a state university, just to get your prereqs out of the way. That is a common strategy to help reduce costs of higher ed, is starting at your local 2-year and then transferring to your 4-year. So that's also a very common one. And that one you're more likely to have transferring as part of your academic journey already from the get-go, whereas these other reasons for transferring might not be, they might just spring on you, right? Like they're definitely not things you plan for. Another reason people transfer is poor academic performance. And so this is one that I've seen as well, where someone is at an institution, it's their first time inside that collegiate environment, and just they're not academically prepared for it. Whether their high school, was different environment, or whether like it's so different that other factors are coming in like homesickness, or just doesn't have the skill sets yet to be in that space, that's totally fine too. So what some colleges will do is that they will place scholars in a kind of like an academic performance program, where they will ask that they go to another institution, bring up their GPA, and then transfer back in. So that could be a possibility as well, that you would need to go to another institution to bring up your GPA and then come back to that your original institution to show better academic performance. And of course, there's always the college recognition, and the prestige of a different college is more beneficial to you. This is something you might not have considered when you first started your collegiate journey. There are certain institutions that have, that are renowned for their specific programming, and or may have a direct pipeline to certain jobs afterwards with certain companies, and you want to take advantage of that. So you might want to transfer into that specific college to gain that renown and that prestige. And that's totally fine too. That's what's beneficial to you. So yeah, so these are a wide variety of reasons someone transfers. And of course, there's always the returning to college to complete your degree. If you took some time out and found that, you're in a different place geographically, you have a different place in your life and you're looking for a different major, going back into college would also constitute a transferring back in if you did have credits from the past. Excuse me. So these are some transferring questions to ask yourself. If transferring was not part of your academic roadmap at the time, like I said, transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year, this is a great way to look at why transferring would benefit you. So take some time to write down these questions, consider them, work through them on your own pace. Usually you will know if some institution's not working out for you. And again, it's okay. That's totally fine if one isn't. It could be a simple thing of the institution's values are different than yours, or, it's hard finding a community inside the population that is at that college. So for sure, work through these questions and see if transferring is right for you. And you may find that, you would just rather stick it out at your current college, and that's okay too. That's definitely your journey and your choice as a student, as a scholar. So yeah, take a minute. Feel free to screenshot this if you're interested or write them down. Definitely great questions to ask. Okay, so process to transfer. This section here, we're going to go over the different aspects that might come up as you start to consider and look at transferring. One of the things that I found is that there are more resources provided to scholars when they first start their academic journey than when they decide to transfer. And again, it's different by institution to institution. So definitely don't think that your college is not going to support you transferring. A lot of community colleges or two-year institutions, they have transfer centers, they have transfer fairs, so they can provide those types of supports, whereas other colleges may not. And there's a strong reliance on your current knowledge of higher education to make your choices on transferring. So that's one thing to consider. There are typically separate applications for transfer students because you have academic experience, you have academic achievement, you've made academic progress, as opposed to your other student counterparts who've just started their academic journey. They want to showcase that inside of your application. So typically the transfer student application is more extensive than a new student application, and by comparison takes more time to complete. So definitely keep this in mind when you are thinking of transferring. You know, it takes time. You don't want to lose motivation. You don't want to fall, you know, to this thing of like, well, maybe I just won't transfer and I'll stick it out here. And that's okay if you decide that that's the option, but for sure, just take that in consideration when you are looking at transferring. And especially the institution that you're transferring into might be on a different calendar schedule than the one that you're at. So let's say the one that you're at does trimesters, kind of like SIPI, and you're moving to one that does semesters. You know, when you transfer, you want to make sure that you keep in mind that overlap of the academic calendar. So there might be a period of time where you're not in school when you expect it to be. So again, keep those things in mind when you're looking at transferring. And of course, please feel free to contact your college's transfer center. If that college's transfer center, if there's a transfer calendar or an academic advisor or admissions advisor to talk through these processes, they will definitely be beneficial to help you navigate that space. So this is an area of matriculation agreements and memorandums of understanding. These are two separate forms of, let's say, a transfer plan, as it were. Typically, you'll find these at community colleges, and they really create these pathways to transfer into local colleges or universities or state institutions to really help that pathway smooth out. So on the left there, you have the articulation agreement. This is a documented transfer plan between the two colleges for a specific major or program. Typically, or you might have also heard this called a pipeline agreement. So this is where the degree plan at the community college lines up directly with the state university or four-year institution, and you transfer directly into that program. So if you remember from earlier in this presentation, I have made an example of that, of how that definition of like transferring straight into a program would look like. This would be in one of those situations in which you complete your degree and then transfer into the program directly. And that has been And then there's also on the right hand, this one is a memorandum of understanding. This one's a non-binding agreement. It's kind of a gentleman's agreement. You kind of just shake your hands on it and say like, yeah, this is something that we will consider and, case by case basis, but is a general kind of like agreement between the two colleges. The MOU created can be for a limited time between the two campuses to encourage higher matriculation rates from one campus to another. So, you want to make sure you're paying attention if someone is talking about an articulation agreement where it's documented, it's agreed on, it's a legal binding thing, versus a memorandum of understanding where it's like, oh yeah, that used to be in play, for the past 5 years, but we're not sure if we're going to renew that understanding come the future. So that's these two types of agreements, again, are very common at community college, 2-year institutions, and then transferring to local state colleges or universities. It's up to the administration at both institutions to make these agreements and the relationships. One thing to pay attention to with the memorandum of understanding and the articulation agreement is, does what you're doing a part of that memorandum of understanding or articulation agreement? Because sometimes inside of these agreements, they're specifically for specific programs. An example of this would be like if you are, I don't know, like a biology major at a community college and you want to go into microbiology at the, state university, and they have an articulation agreement. So you can seamlessly go from your biology associates into microbiology bachelor's degree. Great. Now let's say the same agreement stands, but you're an English major. That agreement might not be applicable to you because you're an English major. So that might be something to look at, something to be very aware of the details of what the agreement and the memorandum of understanding is stating. The other thing to pay attention to is in these agreements and MOUs, did they say the scholar has to graduate from this community college in order to receive these benefits? So if you're halfway through your degree and you're like, you know what, I'm done with this, I just want to transfer to a 4-year, I'm ready to go, and you move to transfer, but they're stating that, you have to graduate from the local community college or 2-year before you receive those benefits of the agreement or MOU. So that's the other thing to consider while you're transferring. And this is where that conversation piece with the local transfer counselor or academic advisor really comes into play, is like, are those requirements being met? You also want to say that if it's part of the plan to participate in these, you want to make sure that you're seeing all the levels that are going in here. And it can get very tricky. I understand entirely, like, oh, that's really confusing. But again, please go to the transfer center, any type of transfer counselors, academic advisors for more information. Okay, so college credit transfers. This can be pretty tricky in and of itself, simply because the college credit transfers, I'm going to point it out there on the bottom of your screen. The college you are transferring into determines what college credits will transfer. Again, this is very generalized. I'm not saying that because these things are met that these credits will transfer. It is up to the college you're transferring into to determine which credits transfer and which don't. So definitely please pay attention to this when you're looking at transfer opportunities as well. So kind of going through the list here in what may or may not transfer, and just, again, this is just my understanding and knowledge and what I've learned in my career. I've been in higher ed for about 10 years now, so bear with me as we go through each one. First and foremost, pre-college courses will not transfer. They are not considered college level courses and so are not considered college level credits. You may have seen these policies play out in your own institution too, particularly around scholarships, federal things of like, we'll only pay for college classes. Pre-college courses are not college level. So this could be any type of remedial course. Typically they're in English, math, and writing. And you'll know they're remedial, either they will be less, their course listing will be like less than 100, or it will have a 0 at the beginning of the numbers. So an example of this would be like Math 095 is a pre-level college course. You could say like English 98 is a pre-level college course. And typically when you get above 100, usually like English 101, Math 101, that's when you're hitting the college courses level. Dated courses might not transfer. Again, look at each college's policies. I've seen very generous course listings from like 10 years ago. So that's the grade of like, if you took this course 10 years ago, we will still consider it transferring in. I've seen it as close as 5 years. So you've had to have taken that class and received credit within the past 5 years for it to be able to transfer. Now this is where it gets interesting, because if you've been out of college for a while and you want to retake that course, that is an option. Typically your English 101s, your math courses, they may like transfer in and you don't want to retake those. But if it's specifically for your intended, let's say, profession after you graduate, you may want to retake the course to kind of like refreshen all the understandings and nuances of the course. Things might have changed in the 10 years that you've taken it. But yeah, please make sure you're paying attention to the date of when these courses were taken. Calculating GPA, your transferred in credits will not go into the new college's GPA. The GPA you come in with, that is important for the application process, but it does not get calculated into your new institution's GPA. Those courses will show up on your transcripts, but they do not get calculated into your GPA. So please pay attention to that, especially when you're starting at a new institution and you go in and you're like, I got straight A's, boom, your GPA changed to 4.0. It works out pretty good. But you also want to make sure like you're keeping that GPA up to make sure you're staying within like scholarship components or any type of like needs you need to be in to make sure that that GPA is still strong. College accreditation. So this is a tricky one. To be honest, I'm not too sure like how that works in a lot of spaces. The college accreditation process is pretty tricky. I'm not gonna lie. But the college you're transferring to may look at the accreditation of the college you're transferring from, and call that into question. So if the institution that you're at, has lost accreditation, which can tend to happen at some institutions, they might not transfer in credits from the time that the college did not have accreditation. So this could get tricky. I wouldn't worry too much about it, honestly, but it can happen. Like it has happened in the past. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing that's pretty interesting in transferring is the maximum credit transfers. So this is where the institution will only take in a certain number of credits. Looking through the research, I found that it differs by institution. Typically, the max or range, I should say, not really the max, is around 60 credit hours, transferable credit hours. So the max will typically be around 60 because that'll be just after your sophomore year of college. So when you transfer in, you're more likely to be a junior. But that's at the max. Typically for a bachelor's degree, it's 120 credit hours total. So they'll take like 50% of that. That's the rough estimate. Again, please check with the college you're transferring to see how many credits will transfer, how many they'll accept. Course listing, this is also another one that's pretty interesting. General rule of thumb, if they don't have it at the college you're going to, most likely it will not transfer. So a good example of this is English 101. It most likely will transfer because every college has an English 101 equivalency. So great. If it's like liberal arts 103, the history of, I don't know, the University of New Mexico, that might not transfer because there might not be equivalency at the University of Iowa. You know what I mean? So it might go into a history credit, it might go into something specific, like an elective credit. But most likely if it's not there at that college, it might not transfer. And again, this is based on like just the different types of transfer and course listings, and this is why it gets really complicated. College credit hours, that's a big one too. So let's say you have to take the same amount of college credit hours for it to transfer. So an example of this is, let's say you took a science course that had 3 credit hours, but the place that you're transferring to, their credit hours are science courses for 4 credit hours for the specific class. And you're like, I took the class, I did it, like I got a passing grade, that's totally fine. No, because they need 4 credit hours and the class that you took in the science was 3. So that's another thing to pay attention to. Usually if it goes over, they'll transfer it in. But if it goes under, then they're more likely not to. And again, that's different for every institution, but that's just something to consider. Course final grade. So this one is also an interesting one too. And it gets swiftly along the lines in that your course final grade in that class needs to be a C or better. Typically, if it's a D at your current institution, that might be considered passing. And so, you could pass English 101 with a D. But that English 101 class might not transfer because it's not a C or better. That, again, they can play with this a little bit, but I don't really see them often doing it. So you want to make sure that it's a C or better in that class. If you took a class pass fail, they will automatically count it as a C. You could have got a pass plus, but they're still going to mark it as a C. I think that's just for like across the board, like standard industry rule. Okay, so those are some things to consider when looking at what can transfer and what might not. Transferring course evaluations, TCEs. This is the official document of the college you're transferring to stating what courses they're going to accept. They will only do this after you have already been accepted. So you can't really go to like several colleges and be like, here are my transcripts. Please tell me how many are going to transfer in, and I'll just go based on the one that accepts the most credits. Typically, they're going to wait until you're officially accepted to that college before creating a TCE. So keep that in mind. The other component of this is that they will only use official transcripts. So definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at policies and procedures, because some colleges and universities, and when I say some, I say a majority, they will not release your official transcripts unless you've paid down your student fees. So if you still have a bill at that college, they won't release your official transcripts. And you might not be able to get accepted to the new college because you only have unofficial transcripts. So again, that kind of interplays with the timeline you might be expecting when you are looking at transferring as options. And I'm going to restate this again. The college you are transferring into determines what college credits will transfer. These are just components of what to look for and to consider when you're looking at those credits. I am not speaking on anything concrete because each institution is different. Again, that's the conversation you should really have with an admissions counselor or the office's registrar's office. Okay, so transferring timeline. Here we go. Once you've made the decision to transfer, the process can begin at any time, honestly. And here's kind of 11 steps to the transfer timeline. You also want to make sure, first and foremost, that the college you're transferring to admits during fall, spring, or both semesters. Again, going back to that academic calendar, some institutions might only accept transfers in the fall or only in the spring or both semesters or trimesters. Make sure you're looking at that academic calendar. Review the application process and its definitions. Are you considered a transfer applicant based on their policies? And again, the transfer application can be more extensive, so please just make sure that you're looking at the differences and making sure you're having those conversations. Meet with your transfer admissions counselor. They typically have these at like the colleges that have a higher transfer in population. So you can discuss the process, your interest. Great time to ask questions on the culture, the college, the student body, programs, acceptance rate of transfer students, that type of thing, so you can kind of gauge what that's going to look like for you. And of course, this is a great time to gather your documents for your application. We're going to go over a list of what are possible documents they might ask for, in addition to the application itself, with your demographic information, contact information, that type of thing. But that'll be in the next 2 slides. And then also, this is the one that I highly suggest, of like letting your current college's community know you are transferring. So this could be like friends, acquaintances, faculty, any staff that you've made a connection with or relationship with. Let them know that you're transferring. You want to make sure you're keeping that network and that contact information helpful. So many times I find that transfer students don't do this step, and I feel like it might limit the network they've already made or that community they've already made. And a lot of times I think people are supportive of your decision to transfer, and having that connection at that former community space is also very helpful as well. Okay, so this is the second part of number 6. Complete the transfer application as early as possible. You want to make sure, again, if you're looking to get that transfer credit document, you want to make sure that you're looking it over. If there are any disputes, you can always dispute them as well. Like, why didn't this one transfer? Or let me take a look again at this option as a transfer student. A lot of the admissions counselors I did in my research really support scholars keeping your course syllabi. In case any type of disagreement on transferability comes up, you could always present the syllabi to the registrar's office or the transfer committee, whoever is deciding what transfers in, and say, like, this is the course syllabi, this is what we learned, this is, all the information, the professor's contact information. So make sure you hold on to that syllabi. Either the physical copy is fine or a digital copy, save it somewhere that you have access to, just in case you should need to make that case. Number 7 here, ask your transfer admissions counselor when the acceptance decision will be made. I should have switched 9 and 8, honestly, because like, please wait for that acceptance letter before making any major changes or decisions. If you've decided to move to a new city and transfer there, and then for some reason your application was denied, you don't want to be in that new city, in that new space without like alternative plans, right? So please make sure that you're having those conversations in that relationship. Um, Number 8 is make a list of all the organizations, individuals, parties that need to be notified you are transferring. So this could be scholarship organizations, tribal scholarship offices. If you need to update your FAFSA application, the student loan officer, student memberships, like NASA, ACES, any type of space that you're in that has student memberships, you want to update them because their chapter might be different at the new institution, or they might not even have a chapter at that institution. So keep that in mind, and keep a list of what you need to update. Kind of went over 9, please wait for your acceptance letter. And then 10, once you're accepted, organize and update your information. Again, this is back to like, so people can find you, so they can reconnect with you, they know what happened to you. You just want to make sure you're keeping that open as much as possible, especially if those networks are going to be beneficial to you in the future. That might be helpful. And then 11 there is attend any opportunities to develop a network at your new college. This could be transfer orientation. This could be any type of events that are coming up in the department or the major that you've selected. Attend those events, really try to make that connection early on. And we're going to talk about why here in a few slides. So as I stated previously, the transfer application may be different as opposed to when you were a new freshman. Definitely look at deadlines. Sometimes application deadlines for transfer students are different than new freshman students. Again, it differs at every institution. I'm trying not to keep saying that, but it's such a critical point of making sure that you are aware that each college is different with transfer students. So here are some things they might ask in addition to the application. Official transcripts. So this could be any transcript from any college you've ever attended. So like I said, if you've transferred from multiple colleges, they're going to ask for all colleges that you've attended transcripts. Even if the date is so far back, they still want those official transcripts. So please, please, please make sure that you keep the line in like which colleges that you've attended and like transferring those college credits, that type of thing. Please make sure that you're keeping that in mind. If you're just transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year and that's the only college you've attended, great. They just need the official transcripts. Sometimes they will ask for the graduation date of that 2-year institution in order to be included in those MOUs or agreements, articulation agreements. So keep that in mind, that if you send over the transcripts and they're like, oh, it doesn't have your graduation date on here, so we can't put you into the articulation agreement or MOU, or you can't be a part of that, just keep that in mind. Like, do they need to have the graduation date from your 2-year or community college before you can move or be a part of that agreement? Can get pretty frustrating if you send it over and you're like, I already sent it. And they're like, well, it didn't have this. And you're like, oh. So keep that in mind. Recommendation letters. Because you've had that experience already, they really want to know what your work ethic, your academic aptitude looks like. So they may ask for a faculty to recommend you. And this is where having that relationship, letting your faculty know that you're transferring, asking for that recommendation letter becomes really helpful. Because the earlier you let them know what's going on, I think they'll be able to better accommodate this part of an application. They may ask for a personal statement. This might be about the reasons why you're transferring or what your academic journey has been thus far. This is not only a writing sample for like why you're transferring or getting to know you, but it could be a marker of your writing ability. So please feel free to like utilize tutoring services, the writing center to make this a strong personal statement because it might be looking at your writing ability, not just knowing more about you as a student. Okay, so the other option here is major specific requirements. So again, if you're transferring into a specific major, let's say you're going into the business major, they may ask you for a resume. If you're transferring into the creative writing department, they may ask you for a writing sample. If you're transferring into videography or fine arts, they may ask for a portfolio, any of your previous works. So that's why looking at the transfer requirements early on is really helpful. So you have enough time to pull these together and submit them. Number 5, they may ask for ACT, SAT scores. Technically, these scores never expire, and they may request them if you've completed them in the past 5 years. I don't know why they would ask for that, but some, resources said that they do. Some do, some do. Again, depending on what college you're looking at. And this might be waived if college level courses have already been completed. So like your, reading courses, your Math 101, your English 101, English 102, Math 102, if those have already been completed, then they might just say, we don't need your ACT or SAT scores. I was honestly surprised to find that as like one of the requirements. I was like, why would you? Okay. But again, each college is different. And then re-stressing here the application deadline, please make sure that you are noting when the deadline is for transfer applicants. It may be different. Okay, so you've transferred. Congratulations. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of intricacies, but you finally did it. So when you're in this new space, it is important to find community. It can feel difficult to feel connected at first because many colleges and universities, they invest heavily in like the first year, the first semester that students are on campus for those first year students, those freshman students. They really try to build that bond early in. So that way, students stay, they feel connected, they have community. They have people to rely on, that peer support. And as a transfer in student, you might not have that, and it might seem that everybody else does. And so it can really feel like the odd person out. And this might make it feel difficult to connect. So keep this in mind when you get to this new space. It's new, it's exciting, there's some anxiety there too. Maybe at your old school you were able to call faculty by their first name, but now you have to call them Dr. So-and-so, and you're still getting used to the different lingo, like things mean different things here. Instead of a registrar's office, they have a different type of office, or they call it something else. And so you get caught in these like lingos that you had at your old college that are no longer here at your new college. So give yourself, some time to adapt, to, really get a feel for things, and, really take that gratitude for yourself of like, yeah, this is an entirely new space and I'm building a community from scratch. And, it might seem that your peers have known each other for like longer, and so it can feel difficult. So I really encourage you to look at ways to help ease the process of finding community in these spaces. First and foremost, attend the transfer student orientation. it might be helpful just to learn the lingo. Maybe you use Blackboard at your old college, but now they use another program. Um, and it might look different, but it just takes some time to get used to. Or their ID cards look different. I don't know exactly. But for sure, attend that transfer student orientation and ask those questions, I think. A lot of times they're going to bank on your experience of being in college for some time to get you through that process. But it's okay to be like, hey, I don't know what that means. I don't know if there's an equivalent at my old college that y'all take for granted here. Um, so yeah, so just be honest, be authentically yourself. I would suggest early on meeting with the department faculty and student representative. Typically, departments have like a student chair, student rep for that department. And so that's a great way to learn some of the history, at least verbal history of the student perspective in the past, 2 years. This is where you can learn about the intricacies and the relationship of staff to students, faculty to students, faculty to staff, and kind of know like who's all here on this like vast campus. Um, I would encourage also visiting with the career and internship office if available to develop your career plan. It's always great to get that started and going as soon as you enter, so that way you can plan out like your last 2 years or however long you have really, and get you to that career pathway of like after college. Attend student events, join student organization and clubs. This might feel different in a lot of ways. Um, but it's always helpful to attend these events. I think they don't know if they get stronger relationships in these spaces, but you can find like-minded people when you go to these events and when you join the clubs and organizations. So it's all about finding community and finding like-minded people, which is nice. Attend conferences. Sometimes we will have multiple students going to a conference. So that might be a good chance to create community. Be like, hey, I know you because we both went to ACES. Like, that's awesome. And you might see some of your former peers at ACES. And so like it really helps you bridge that like transition between the two colleges. So are those two forms of like who you are, like who I was at this college and who I am now. If that's a thing for you. If it's not, don't worry about it. Um, Organize events that you would like to see on campus. This is always a great way to like meet new people. I don't know if you guys have been following The Golden Bachelor. I don't watch it, but I kind of just watch the recap because I just find it very interesting. And I always ask people, like, are you watching The Golden Bachelor? Have you heard about it at all? And like some people are like, no, never heard of it. And others are like, yes, I'm obsessed. And I'm like, okay, these are my people. I can talk to them a little more. So organize a watch party or like, organize a group of friends to go hang out, do different things. Have a lunch date with people, coffee dates, attend events, other activities. Like this is always helpful to build that community. A lot of the people I've met in my grad program, and it was an online program, it was just people being like, hey, I thought what you said in class was interesting. Do you want to, jump on Zoom and chat? And, that turned into like, I think lifelong friendships. So, definitely take that time to be like, you're interesting. I want to hear more from you. And that's always a cool way to connect with people. The other thing I would encourage too is take the official campus tour. You kind of learn about what the public knows and about different aspects of campus, of like maybe like traditions on campus or like big events that happen every year. Take the campus tour, see what's up, see what people ask and what you know. And then of course, run for student leadership roles. This could be ambassador, this could be student rep. That way people know you and you can feel better connected to the community. And then, of course, stay in contact with your previous college's community. This is a great way to like build resources across networks and see what is happening that can benefit you. Um, I think it's a great resource that you have two communities and two higher ed institutions or more if you've transferred from more institutions. And it can really like benefit from that multiple campus experience. Definitely, use that as a strength for sure. All righty. So, so that concludes this portion, this webinar. Again, thank you all for attending. I deeply appreciate it. It is a Saturday, so that definitely makes it all the much more sweeter that you were able to attend. Here is the event evaluation. I will also drop it in the chat for you. Please be sure to complete it, as this is how we track attendance. Thank you so much for being here. I deeply appreciate you all. Please take care of yourself, and y'all have, a great weekend. Good luck with finals, happy December. The last month of 2023. It's weird. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you being here.